All right, we're going to start in a few moments, and I will give a formal introduction of Steve with maybe a little bit of embellishment. All right, I'm going to start recording. All right, welcome everybody to day 4 of the Bigbluebutton World Conference 2021. It is my pleasure to introduce Stephen Mugee, who is our keynote speaker today, which will be talking about the Bigbluebutton Foundation. And I'm going to read Stephen's formal bio, and then I'm going to embellish it just a little bit. So Dr. Stephen Mugee is an associate professor at the Sprott School of Business, Carleton University. His areas of expertise include technology entrepreneurship and commercialization, non-traditional settings for innovation and entrepreneurship, business ecosystems, communities, platforms, and interconnected systems that combine these structures, and business models of technology entrepreneurs, especially in non-traditional settings. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Steve for 12, 14 years now, and Steve should be credited with a very big reason why Bigbluebutton exists. So back in 2007, when I first met Richard Allam, the creator of Bigbluebutton, Richard had been a master's student. He was finishing up his thesis in the Technology Innovation Management program at Carleton, and he had written Bigbluebutton. He had written the first version of it. It took him about a year, and it was at use in one faculty, and that was the TIM program. And there were a couple instructors that were using it, one of which was Steve. And I can remember like it was yesterday, I was very interested in what Richard was doing, but I wanted to make sure that if I quit my job full time and went in for this, that there was something here. And so I went into Stephen's office really with an open mind, and Stephen was so enthusiastic about Bigbluebutton, the project, the potential, so supportive that I thought, okay, this is worth it. Let's go for this. And that led down the road where Richard and I started Blindside Networks. We open sourced Bigbluebutton. We got it going as a community project and really just pushed on it and built a whole ecosystem around it. And so I want to, give the floor to Stephen. He's going to talk about the foundation, which was actually informed in part by other very successful open source projects and what were the characteristics of those open source projects. And we were very much intent on fully leveraging what a thriving, healthy open source project could both do for both the social benefit of it, which I spoke a bit about yesterday in terms of like education is so important to the world, but also the entrepreneurial opportunities which such a project, a successful project provides, but it all depends on a healthy ecosystem and the elements to support that. So with that, I will turn it over to Stephen.
Well, thank you very much, Fred. And I also remember very fondly the meeting that you're referring to in my office at Carleton. And it's wonderful to see how far we've come in the time since then. So I'm going to bring up my slides here. It's a great pleasure to speak with you today. So I'm talking to people today about an organization who has been working behind the scenes for since the earliest days of Bigbluebutton in the benefit of everyone who's here on this call and everyone who was on the developer call yesterday and everyone who was on the educator call on the previous day. This is the Bigbluebutton Foundation, which, well, let's see what that is on the next slide here. This is a vendor-neutral, membership-based, not-for-profit company, and it's the owner of the intellectual property of the Bigbluebutton open source project. So it acts as custodian of things like all of the IP that the Bigbluebutton community builds, and it gives it a legal owner, which has a lot of benefits in Western law. If you're a community without a legal entity, you don't have status to do some things that you would if you had an organization that's legally incorporated and can be an identity for that can stand behind the community. So back when we founded the Bigbluebutton Foundation, we had a statement of purpose here to say that the purpose of the corporation is to enhance the value of remote students' learning and to reduce the costs of institutions. So this was an objective that we set out a very long time ago, and it's in our legal documents of incorporation, but it still stands up very well here today. First and foremost, you see the students, the learning outcomes that are the mission of the foundation. Second of all, you see about delivering online education, and it's couched here in economic language, but the point really is about making, in many cases, online education possible at a reasonable cost where it may not have been before. Okay, so that's the purpose of the Big Blue Button Foundation. Legally, it's incorporated federally in Canada. It's corporation number 759935-8. And we incorporated this back in August of 2010. So this has been around for a while. And then the legal structure under which this was created was the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, a legal entity that can stand behind Big Blue Button. The Big Blue Button Foundation maintains a set of legal documents to give a legal entity behind the open source project. So this is a list of the most important documents there. It has a set of bylaws that we're bound to by law. There's a membership agreement of what it means to be a member in the Big Blue Button Foundation. The foundation maintains the contributor agreement. So this is the document that everybody signs who is contributing code into the Big Blue Button open source project. Contributors keep all rights, titles, and interests to their contribution, but they provide a license to Big Blue Button Inc., the legal name of the Big Blue Button Foundation. And then there's an intellectual property policy that the foundation maintains that's about things like the Big Blue Button logos and trademarks and the conditions under which they can be used and they can't be used. So all of that is the role of the foundation. What we know from open source foundations, the most successful ones all over the world in a whole host of different domains, is that communities do things very, very, very well. Where an entity like an open source foundation can help is the things that communities don't do well, like this legal entity and to be able to own things. But the foundation exists to support these various communities around Big Blue Button. So a few things about what the foundation does, kind of past and present. There's some costs of operating a not-for-profit company. So the foundation takes care of all of that, hosting the board elections, preparing the required reports, doing the banking, the member meetings that are required under our articles of incorporation, articles of continuance. Okay, so that all falls on the foundation. The Big Blue Button Foundation can also serve as a member in other organizations. So this is where Big Blue Button's membership in the Open Source Initiative comes from, for example. It's the Big Blue Button Foundation that has that membership, the Free Software Foundation, the Open Invention Network that can be so helpful for members that are facing any disputes around intellectual property and open source licenses, and then a whole variety of other organizations that Big Blue Button can have membership in because there's a foundation. The foundation takes its membership fees and then it spends them on behalf of the Big Blue Button community. So its past activities there have been paying for legal work. So things like securing trademarks around the world on the Big Blue Button logos and brands, things around copyright, all matters related to intellectual property. The foundation has in the past funded some audits of the Big Blue Button software, continuing this back into the community. So this is things like one of the earliest audits was around accessibility, around the legislations that we have here in Canada and in Ontario around the access for Ontarians with disabilities, looking at Big Blue Button and compliance with these best practices and guidelines around being as accessible to everyone as we can possibly make it. And then that audit then went and influenced the developer community who could go then and act on those recommendations. There was an audit of intellectual property going into Big Blue Button. So open source projects are very complex systems. that consume many, many other open source projects. And those of you who have been in open source a while will understand some of the challenges that can arise with license compatibility and the vast numbers of licenses that are possible on an open source project that not all necessarily work well with one another. So that clean IP audit was around making sure that when a commercial firm, perhaps providing products or services to a university or deploying Bigbluebutton software at an educational institution, can be assured that the licensing for Bigbluebutton is clean, detected any problems that existed, and then let the community go out and address those problems, finding alternatives for some components in some cases, and just getting licensing cleaned up to be in the very clean state of licensing that we have the Bigbluebutton project in today. There were multiple audits at various times around security of Bigbluebutton, contracting with third parties to take a look at different aspects of the software and then reporting those results back into the community so that the developers could address what was found there. And again, that was a stepping stone to the mature and solid system that you have today. The foundation's also been involved in events, so supporting things like developer summits, which were a particularly big deal before the pandemic when people could travel, but we're expecting to see those to be important again in the future somewhat, where sometimes it makes sense to bring people together to the same physical place to do things. Lots of things work very well remotely. Sometimes the developer summits were very effective ways of moving the project forward around particular technical tasks. And then user events like this one, things that we do online, things that we do in all sorts of forums. The Bigbluebutton Foundation can be an active supporter of that, taking revenues from our membership fees and then spending them on behalf of the Bigbluebutton community. So lastly, there is the Bigbluebutton Foundation maintains the commercial support page at bigbluebutton.org. So one of the things that institutions and educators can do when they go to the Bigbluebutton website, if they don't want to install Bigbluebutton themselves and go to the effort of maintaining it, staffing that information technology staff in order to do that, or doing it yourself, you can pay others to do that work for you. And the commercial support page has links to companies that are members of the Bigbluebutton Foundation that can, for example, maintain systems, they can provide technical support, they can produce on a contractual basis extensions to the software to be contributed back into the community. So the foundation maintains this commercial support page, and the way to get on that commercial support page in part is to become a member of the foundation. Now that's looking at today and in the past. We believe, the members of the Bigbluebutton Foundation and me, that the time is right here for us to do more than we have been so far. So while the Bigbluebutton Foundation's been working quietly in the background on behalf of everyone here, this is an opportunity here with the Bigbluebutton World event and the attention that we're getting here to perhaps grow the membership, perhaps do more with the foundation than what we have been doing thus far, or doing recently. The surge of interest in Europe and Germany and Austria, and many of the presentations here today, there's lots, I think, that the foundation can do. So here's just a partial list of some things. We can certainly do more around events, audit, and advocacy in all of its different forms to the benefit of the community. I see a role here of the Bigbluebutton Foundation in fostering research, in recognizing research into online learning, to participation in online classes, to the sorts of analytics work that we can do with the data that comes out of online learning systems, doing that in an ethical, responsible way that complies with local regulation. Lots to be said here about this. I'm a researcher. My interest in Bigbluebutton originally was as a user needing to deliver online courses. and then all the interesting challenges around online education. And I think the foundation could be active there. We've heard from some of the presenters on previous days that they are working on their contributions, and their involvement in Bigbluebutton is connected with graduate work that they're doing at a university. That's great. I think the foundation could reward that, both incentivizing research, publicizing and disseminating the results of research, and rewarding really strong research, perhaps through competitions or awards or some such. So these would be things that I'd be going back to the Bigbluebutton Foundation membership with and discussing, are these things that we want to do here going forward? We could certainly do more around trademark and legal enforcement. This can be time-consuming work to send out the letters around the infringements that we find online. And generally people respond to these very quickly. But that work needs to be done. And the foundation could take the responsibility of having having interns with the required training and skill levels to do some of this work. We could do more around recognizing contributions into the project, recognizing novel applications of Bigbluebutton, and getting the good news out around that work. The Bigbluebutton Foundation could do more around sponsorship of activities that support online learning in Bigbluebutton, and very open and interested in the ideas from the members as well, especially those members that may choose to reach out and join us that haven't been involved before. So in putting this together, Fred had recommended we give you some backstory on where the Bigbluebutton Foundation came from. So I just have a few slides on that. You saw this slide from Fred in the developer conference, the developer session yesterday, and on previous days about originating at Carleton University. This is one of the shots up on a whiteboard of the early discussions around architecting the system, anchored around some components that are quite different than the way it operates today. But this was the early days of Bigbluebutton in 2007, getting it up and working. The context of that, thank you, Fred, for the kind introduction, was a graduate program in technology innovation management, emphasizing technology entrepreneurship and commercialization. So in my graduate program at Carleton that I'm the director of now, although I wasn't at the time in these early days of starting Bigbluebutton, we take experienced engineers and computer scientists, business professionals, people who are mid-career with a whole variety of skills, technical and business, and help transform them into a path of being an entrepreneur, completing the program with their degree and with their own startup. We also have a segment that are interested in supporting entrepreneurship in various ways, and a segment of students that are interested in doing entrepreneurial things inside existing companies. So just some of that background there. This was the context in which we saw an opportunity. We needed to deliver online courses, and then we nurtured and encouraged this to happen. And from that spark, we'll have all of the good things that we've seen here today. Okay, so that timeline, what Richard Allam's Master of Engineering thesis in 2006, first thesis completed in the Technology Innovation Management program around open source software and businesses building products and services on top of open source software. And these were hot research questions at the time in the mid-2000s of how you give something away for free and build successful businesses on it. Well, lots of companies do that. And this whole research program there was contributing to our knowledge about how that happens. And Blindside Networks, Richard, as the architect, was one of the early innovators in that space. 2007, we started using an early version of Bigbluebutton for online classes. We incorporated the foundation in 2010, and in 2013, I joined that as executive director, taking on that role, reporting into the board of directors and the membership of making sure this work of the foundation happened. Okay, so we've been at this for a while, is the point that I wanted to leave you with there. For September 2014, that was when we held our first annual members meeting, elected the first board of directors, and then membership renewals continued after that. okay? And we think now's the time to grow this and do more. I'm a researcher. Research strongly influences my approach to things here. And I could talk about research all day, but I'm just going to put up one view here that is, it's a view of the way in which we can have an engine for growth around open source software, encouraging participation in this virtuous circle. And the basis for this is that there's many ways of organizing a successful open source project. You can have a project that's managed essentially under a single company that does all the contributions and solicit contributions from the community. That can work, and we see lots of successful things like that. There's also this notion of a community-based open source project. And from the earliest days of Bigbluebutton, that was what we were striving for. So not one company, but many organizations, some for profit, some with other purposes that are contributing to Bigbluebutton, and of course the communities of individuals who get involved for their own reasons. So see over here on the left is the community. That's what was the focus of yesterday's session. And this is one of the best ways you can contribute to the success of Bigbluebutton, especially if you have software development skills, would be getting involved in the community, filing bug reports, making contributions, eventually becoming a contributor to the Bigbluebutton project. And the community works as a meritocracy of individuals. One of the sources for those contributions tends to be the organizations that employ some of the people in the community and support their contributions into Bigbluebutton. And this is what we would call a business ecosystem. And the Bigbluebutton Foundation, just the governance of all of this, puts a lot of thought into fostering this commercial ecosystem. Companies that can build products and services on top of Bigbluebutton, who then find it in their rational economic interests to have their contributions contributed back. So there can be lots of reasons for getting involved in the community. One might be to directly support the company that you're employed with, who is offering products and services on top of Bigbluebutton. The developers contribute to the platform. The platform then benefits this commercial ecosystem over here. So individuals absolutely contribute to the Bigbluebutton community. Companies, organizations, consider getting involved in the ecosystem around Bigbluebutton and the Bigbluebutton Foundation that provides governance to all of this. That's another way in which you can contribute to all the good things happening around Bigbluebutton. So currently, there's 5 members in Bigbluebutton. These are also the organizations that you see when you go and take a look at the commercial support page at the bigbluebutton.org website. They're located all over the world, and the way the membership works, these organizations, they all have standing in the Bigbluebutton Foundation membership. So that was the vendor neutral idea that we had on the very first slide that I showed, that when you get involved in Bigbluebutton membership, the Bigbluebutton Foundation acts on behalf of its members, and you have support of that. And you can go and read more about those organizations on the commercial support page. And then along with that, you're interested, you've got a company building products and services on Bigbluebutton or adding active support. One way to get involved here and to get your company up there would be to join the Bigbluebutton Foundation. I'll talk about membership in just a second. There's some additional requirements as well that come from the community, in the sense that we're looking for members in the foundation to be active on the mailing list, to be answering questions, to be providing support into the open source software project for free. But that's something that, that many of you are already doing. It's a wonderful community, Bigbluebutton. All of those members that we just spoke of, the 5 members that we have today, they're all at the industry membership level. So this is an annual cash contribution into the Big Blue Button Foundation, and then some expectations around providing support in the community. There's a whole variety of other membership levels here that were established when we put the foundation together in the first place. The strategic member level, the idea there was if we've got a big multinational corporation who finds it just as easy to allocate 100K as it does to allocate 5K, we wanted to have an opportunity there for them to get involved. Come in as a strategic member. That strategic membership includes a seat on the board of directors. Some of the other levels elect board members, but at the current time, we have board members for all of our foundation members. And then there'd be some other benefits that go along with strategic membership. So most of our members are industry A's. The industry B member answers one of the questions that was posed yesterday in the developer talk of how do I get involved and get my company noticed, providing services and support for Big Blue Button when I'm just a startup. I'm new at this. I don't have a lot of resources. That's what the industry B membership was all about. It has additional criteria on how you qualify as an industry B member, but this is meant for companies that are just starting out. If you're at the startup phase, you can pay much lower membership fees, come in as an industry B, and get all the benefits of industry B membership. Okay, so we are definitely looking for early stage companies, entrepreneurs, things that when you're just starting out to get involved as well. You don't have to be an established player that's been here from the beginning to get involved and benefit from the foundation. There's a membership tier here for academic members. So this would be where colleges and universities or boards of education or private education companies who want to get involved and have a role here in the foundation can come in as members. There's a notion of an associate member, which is a category for organizations that don't fit the other tiers above. And then we've got the notion of an individual member, where the way this is written up right now in the governance documents, individual members are appointed by the executive director and the board of directors, and they're for outstanding contribution. So this is the way things sit now. One of the things that the membership and the board of directors is going to be doing in the coming year is taking another look at this membership structure and seeing if it's the right structure we want for the future. We've had a lot of change recently, activities and interests. This surge of interest out of Europe, for example, where the organizations that are involved tend to be connected with a university rather than a commercial provider in a lot of cases. So we want to have a place for all of that here. Working with them today as a partner, but figuring out how to get a relationship here around the foundation that owns the copyright and intellectual property and is the custodian of that on behalf of the members. Okay, I had intended this to be a short and concise overview. Next steps. If you're interested in becoming a member, reach out to us. Happy to share the governance documents, have some conversations about what that would entail and what tier of membership and what sort of timing might be right for you. Okay, that's me finished. I'm going to turn that back over to Fred.
Thanks, Stephen. That was great. For those of you in the forum or in the user list, if you have any questions, please feel free to type it into the chat. We wanted to leave time to kind of go through anything about the foundation. And as Stephen mentioned, it's actually been behind the scenes because there is a legal entity that owns the copyright and the trademark. That's Bigbluebutton Inc. And it is our interest to restart the foundation with the memberships to provide a Commonwealth opportunity for companies who are interested in growing the Big Blue Button project to have some way to come together, like a vendor neutral. So it is a foundation that will be, has Steve as executive director, but is largely membership driven.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Fred. So each of these terms here in the top line is important. Vendor neutral, no particular company dominates. The foundation is neutral to its members. Membership base, so it exists on behalf of the membership, and it is organized as a not-for-profit company. So that gives us legal status to do things like to send out a letter if there's a trademark infringement as the owners of that. So I can take Roland's question, is the foundation also the owner of the Big Blue Button brand? Well, the foundation is the owner of all of the intellectual property. And components of that brand would be things like the trademarks. So the stylized bee is a protected trademark, and the foundation is the owner of that on behalf of the community. I hope I've answered that question. Could you say more about that, Dwayne? And there's a good chance here to reinforce a point about the scope of the foundation. The foundation is there to do the things that the community has difficulty doing or doesn't do well. And they complement one another. That's one of the points of that resource flow diagram earlier. Communities are very, very good at voluntary participation and produce some great software. The foundation helps with the things that a community can't necessarily do well on its own.
There's a good question from Nadia. Still rather confused. What's the difference between Blindside Networks, Bigbluebutton Inc., and Bigbluebutton Foundation?
Okay, let me take a quick answer to that, and Fred, you may have a comment on that as well, from the Blindside Network side of things, as well as the Bigbluebutton side of things. So those organizations are companies, and on our membership page here, you'll see Blindside Networks there as a member of the Bigbluebutton Foundation. So Blindside Networks, they have a seat on the board of directors, but then so do these other organizations here have a member on the board of directors of the Bigbluebutton Foundation. And others can get involved by joining as well.
Right, and just speaking like on behalf of Blindside Networks is a separate company, and we very consciously set up a different legal company, Bigbluebutton Inc., so there would be no confusion in the marketplace as to who owns what. There is only one owner of the Bigbluebutton trademark, copyright, source code, intellectual property. That's Bigbluebutton Inc. Anything else is just a separate legal company, a separate legal entity, whether it's wherever it's based in the world.
Yeah, good answer, Fred. And there's a very strong precedent for this in the open source software world of successful open source organizations that have attracted community contributions being set up that way. So maybe you'll be familiar with the Apache Software Foundation or the Eclipse Foundation or the Linux Foundation, right? Just naming off some of the largest ones. But there are dozens and dozens of organizations like the Bigbluebutton Foundation supporting successful open source projects, all with their own structures and particular arrangements in order to support their communities. So there's a question around Bigbluebutton Inc. Bigbluebutton Inc. is the legal name of the Bigbluebutton Foundation. Colloquially, we refer to it as the Bigbluebutton Foundation, but if you go back to our articles of incorporation, Bigbluebutton Inc. is what they say. So, and that's also quite a standard practice. Yeah, so there's a question in chat about a potential for a global campaign to get universities to adopt Bigbluebutton instead of proprietary software, I'd be all for that. Let's have a conversation, and you can count on my full support and the support of the Bigbluebutton Foundation in making those sorts of things happen. So thank you for the comment in chat. That's exactly the scope of things that I'd be very interested in doing. So there's a question about receiving funding from universities and colleges who use Bigbluebutton. So the opportunity to receive funding from universities and colleges would be if those organizations chose to join as a member. The other way is through commercialization, in the sense that these member companies, many of them support colleges and universities, earning revenues from that support, and then these companies become members, or are members of the Bigbluebutton Foundation. So that's the indirect stream of support. But colleges and universities who want to do more, who want to, for example, be on the board of directors, to have some influence on how the foundation allocates the resources that we have to support the Bigbluebutton project, they're very welcome to come in as academic members and participate in that way. It's yet another way of making a contribution. We found that many colleges and universities, they want to consume. They are looking for a solution to their problem around delivering education, and that's fine. Those that want to get involved here in the foundation, we welcome you, and we'd love to bring you on board as members.
So Nadia writes, can we see a list of colleges and universities which are members? And I believe, Steve, at this point, we actually don't have any members from colleges and universities.
That's correct. Exactly, Fred. So we have in the past, we don't currently, but that's a possibility, right? So if you're here representing a college or university and you think this is something that you want to get involved in, well, reach out and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, and there is an academic membership. And Nanda, it's probably not fair to maybe blame any university and college, because we've not promoted the Bigbluebutton Foundation in any way in the last 6 years.
Right.
Part of that is because the commercial companies that were involved got really busy, and it turned out that it was more efficient in some ways to just kind of focus on building up our businesses. And remember, this was pre-COVID time. Bigbluebutton has changed a lot in the last 14, 16 months. It is global, 55 languages, some very active use of it around the world. And so our purpose here in doing this keynote was to highlight and to share with everybody that there is a foundation. Well, there is a legal entity, Bigbluebutton Inc. It is a membership-based organization. So we use the term foundation to refer to it. And we invite people to join and help grow. So, the foundation was always there. Because we didn't really promote the membership or that, obviously didn't hurt Bigbluebutton in any significant way. A lot of the commercial companies picked up the slack by holding, funding the summits, the online conferences like we're doing now. But it's really, I think, an opportunity to bring together a lot of organizations that are starting to build heavily on Bigbluebutton. Some may not be able to join because for whether it's they cannot join a foundation, but they can more easily maybe give money to a commercial company to implement features for them. And this is what's happened a lot in the past. So many of the commercial companies you see listed here, a portion of the revenue has probably come from companies that have looked to accelerate development of Bigbluebutton and came to them and said, hey, you guys are close to the project. Can we just pay you to do it? It's a little more complex to do it through the foundation. But if you look at other successful open source projects, they all have a very strong foundation that advocates on their behalf and supports activities around the world. So we look at the foundation as not the absence of it, but just an opportunity to better support with a legal entity that we had set up initially for the copyright, then added it, making sure it was membership based. And as Stephen said, there's documents are all there for it, the membership agreement, the bylaws, everything is ready to go. all the companies that are listed here have recently become members again. Each of them paid $5,000 US to join the membership. And then that money is going to be put to the best use based on input from the members. So we really want to, make it possible that we could enable more companies around the world that may look for a closer relationship with the project. And it doesn't take away from anything they're doing to support people in the community, to develop enhancements to the product, like Liongate did with the background blur. Just another way to build a group of people, build an organization that's very well proven that if you have an open source project, it's really good to have a foundation behind it that can advocate on its behalf and support whatever the community wants, is trying to do. And that's what Bigbluebutton Foundation is. And just in terms of ebbba.org, it's not an exclusive like ebbba.org, which you'll see a talk about later today, is a European-based company, I think not for profit, but though it may be a different term for it, that is there to have legal standing in Europe and advocate upon Bigbluebutton. So we fully support it from the foundation, right? Like they can use the Bigbluebutton logo, they can use the Bigbluebutton trademark. Like we would love to see an ebbba in all major continents of the world. And that will just make the project even more successful. So lots of ways here, but the Bigbluebutton Foundation is meant to be a supportive role to do whatever the maximum benefit would be for the community.
Yeah, good summary, Fred. So we often have people and organizations coming forward asking, how can I participate more? How can I contribute more? And there's many, many ways. One of them would be becoming a member of the foundation. So that's available to you if that is a way that you choose to come forward and participate and contribute.
So there's a question, Steve, with a few more minutes left, how individuals become members. I think there's something in the foundation's membership to account for that.
There's an individual membership class that is intended for appointment of longtime contributors. That's the way the membership tiers were set up in the past. It's not really intended for individuals who are just getting involved here for the first time, and it's an appointed role. So the way you would get involved, it would be really through an organization. The members of the Bigbluebutton Foundation are organizations for the most part, except for that individual tier. You can get very active in the community through the meritocracy, by contributing, by doing bug fixes, by getting involved. The foundation is meant to complement that by giving a place for organizations to contribute. And feel free to add to that, Fred, if you like.
Now, the foundation wasn't meant to be like 15 individual members, like individual persons. It was meant for companies to, and universities and colleges, academic members, to come together as sort of like fairly significant members. The individuals can collaborate, of course, in the community and in many, many other ways. But if you look at other foundations, they're usually membership-based. Thinking of the Rust Foundation, which just started up recently, with a decent amount of contribution required. So I think that our documents, it was like $5,000 for a Class A industry member. And there was also an in-kind contribution as well, like an equal at least 10,000 US in kind. And that would have been like contribution, developer, contributing to the project. So there's many ways for an individual to become active in the community. but the foundation is meant to be like a membership based, and to have like a not insignificant contribution, because the intent is the foundation would have the means to provide some significant support to the community.
Mm-hmm. That's right, Fred. In many cases, the membership of the Big Blue Button Foundation are the employers of many of the contributors in the development community. I'd add that point as well. Okay, thanks. Let's wrap it up there, Fred.
Yeah, so we only have a moment left. Steve, thank you very much for the presentation. The recording will be available to community shortly, and we hope we can get some more companies involved in the foundation to better support. So thanks everyone for joining. Definitely go on to the next session. You're going to get, actually, it's a very nice follow-on, Lucas Mosek, chairperson at EBBA, the European Bigbluebutton Association, giving advocacy for Bigbluebutton in Europe. And then that will be also, that session time slot will be shared by Cliff Ashford, Monash University, which is talking about they're building a proctoring tool on top of Bigbluebutton. So 2 great talks coming up.
Thanks, Fred. I'm looking forward to both of them. And thanks, everyone, for having me. Bye.
Okay, so I'll stop the streaming. It's going to switch over to live stream. All right, Lucas, we've made you a moderator. You should be able to unmute yourself. We'll just give it a moment here.
Okay.
Hey, Lucas.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Great.
All right. Did you have a presentation to upload?
Basically, our website. So.
Okay.
So our website.
Let me start the recording, and I don't have any bio, but I'm going to give you a very high level, just a very summary introduction, and then I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, great.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of the Bigbluebutton World Summit. The second presentation today is from Lucas Mosek, and he's going to be talking about advocacy for Bigbluebutton in the context of EBBA, which is the recently formed European Bigbluebutton Association. And the goal is to serve the Bigbluebutton community in the conclusion of working groups. And Lucas will talk about the discussion of their goal to work collectively towards improving and establishing a better adoption and broader use of Bigbluebutton. And Lucas is the chairperson of EBBBA. So Lucas, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I see there is, lots of participants. That's great. Awesome. So, hello.
And actually, sorry, Lucas, I'm going to interrupt for just a moment. There's a little bit of a background weird sound coming from your microphone. Can you just tap it to see if it's being picked up by the microphone?
Anything? Test, test, test.
Yeah.
How is it now? How's it now? Still there?
It's really weird. It's like a background sound that's coming through. We'll go for it, but you don't have any other alternative microphone?
No, that's the best one I have.
Let's go with it. Let's go with it. I turn it over to you. You have the floor.
Thank you. So let's try with the audio. So thank you everyone for joining the session. So it's like, my name is Lukas Mocek, and I want to introduce you to EBA, which stands for European Bigbluebutton Association. So everyone is familiar with the still existing situation, but early in 2020, we've been facing like a pandemic. So the demand was created for a very good working video conference system that can scale very nicely. So yeah, Bigbluebutton was a really great solution that meet needs of many universities and schools, as we know. So, but at the end, we had two different situations. It's like we had administrators that been like installing Bigbluebutton for the first time. And then we also had administrators that did know already the tool and faced a situation where they had to scale up massively their server parks because of the demand, as many people have been switching to homeschooling. And at the end, what is the situation as an admin? There is like, of course, the setup that you have to control, but then also like Fred and his team did a great job of like enormous improvements. So you have to keep up with these changes that are coming up with every release note. And also like you are much better in what you do if you have friends and people around you that you can share your situation. What is the server setup? How is the server behaving? And in Germany, there was a great person, he's Holger Bruch, and he started a meetup for admins to share, to connect, and to exchange like their best practices. And he spread the link, he spread this existence of this meetup, and it took up like a rocket. And it became like a super regular event with very high contributions from the participants, where we met also online through BBB, of course, and discussed about the newest releases, the improvements, and also findings, how the systems behaved. And it developed an own dynamic. So it was a great place to exchange for, again, newcomers that came into and had basic questions. What is the setup that I need to run a smaller group, but also like how to scale it up whenever it's demanded. And then we had like a core team that participated very frequently in the calls. And then we had also a very active member, Stefan, who's also very known in the community, that came up with the idea that the current situation that we've been facing in 2000, like at the end of 2020 and beginning of 2021, that everything is driven by Holger. And it's like, it's so valuable. The group that was formed became so valuable for all the participants that we saw the need that there must be a support system. So he introduced us the idea of forming an association, which we now became, right? It's like European Bigbluebutton Association is the result of this. A smaller group of people over many weeks and months worked in Germany because our members have been mostly German speakers. So in the DACH region, which is saying like from Swiss, Austria, of course, greetings to there, and mostly in Germany. So yeah, Bigbluebutton is super active in Germany, and it's a very great community that has been formed in this regular meetup. And now with the European Bigbluebutton Association, we also like face the question of like what is possible once you work together, right? So it's like when you have more structure and you can form like interest groups, or we can call them working groups. And on our website, which I shared in the chat here, it's like you can discover this website, which we like is a starting point. We will have like newer version with more information about our activities. But for example, whoever is opening it up can see that we have the working groups. And I want to introduce them to you quickly. So we have now a dedicated working group that is called in South like accessibility and usability. So it is everything about this accessibility usability, especially like at the BBD project, which is already doing a great job, but there is so much more that can be like implemented. And this is a dedicated group that really wants to focus on this activity. So I really want you to join this group. If you feel interested, here is a contact directly to the group leads. They will welcome you, introduce you. And we also have like formed a own working group related with grants and funding, because we are aware that on a national level and also on the European level, there are possibilities in the open source, but also especially for infrastructure tools, right? So there is a high demand. And now that there is like this association formed, there is like a contact partner for this project that are interested in granting and funding for activities. So it's like, if you are interested or have any questions to this group, here is the contact under funding@eba.org. And of course, one of our biggest also like wishes is that this great, amazing tool is communicated, and as we've been like shouting inside of our own community, inside of our group, which is mostly like mentioned before, the administrators. And we asked like, okay, how many servers are running and how many daily people or students in that case do you have on your machines in operation? And we came to like this really overwhelming number that there is like over 1 million people, like students at universities and school, that are using BBB on a daily basis. So, and we would even come to a higher number when we like continue asking, and we will do so, and we publish these numbers as well. So if you have any like good relations, or you have like the interest of supporting our activities in this group, you can contact us under pr@eba.org and become part of this working group as well. And then we also have like a requirements management team. So basically we see this group as being the ear inside of the community, having the fingers on the pulse of what is demanded, how are the systems behaving, and aggregating this information. So you must see Fred and his team's inbox must be overwhelmed by all these messages they are receiving on a daily basis. And our goal in this case is to streamline this request and this communication. So when we contacted Fred about our idea, he was first like amazed about the existence of the meetup, of the group, of the vibrant community, and he was immediately supportive of the creation of EBA. And we had an agreement that we want to do this like on hands in hands. And as with every release, there are like so many changes. So it's like always being a good feedback giver, but also like transforming the understanding inside of the community based on the decisions done by Fred and his team. So also I had from the team, they spoke into my ear and said like, again, Fred and the team, a shout out, thank you so much for the great and amazing work. And yeah, we had so much fun using your tool, and you've been also very responsive. So yeah, but maybe you've been asking yourself like why you guys didn't call yourself like, for example, the German Bigbluebutton Association. Yeah, that was a discussion inside of the forming team. And we had the idea that we saw so much potential once we have collaboration and work together on different levels. So one thing is, of course, the activities in the German-speaking countries that these admins connect and exchange, but based on our experience being active members of all the other open source communities, we know how active and vibrant Europe is. So we are sure that there are already other groups out there that are basically moving in the same direction. So we, now that we have this opportunity to be more visible and present our existence, we are reaching out to you, inviting you, contact us, becoming part of this European Bigbluebutton Association. And the goal is to exchange best practice and also like become a stronger force in communicating this great tool and contributing to the improvements. So I hope you have reached all on our website, which is called ebba.org, where you can have like all the links to the working groups and how you can contact us. And we will also have like upcoming like events will be distributed and displayed over there. So as Fred was already mentioning, there is much more to come in the future. So we are very much pleased to become part of this global community, of course, as well. But yeah, we want to present to you that there are these working groups. Please become part of that, contact us, reach out to us. And yeah, so far I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to present EBBA to the world. You can also follow us on Twitter. We have a very brand new, fresh Twitter account, but otherwise please use the email forms on our website, ebba.org. So I thank you very much. And I don't know if now the following speaker is, or if we have a Q&A, but I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Lucas, thanks a lot. Very impressive. And I invite anybody who has questions to type them in the chat. Obviously, you can follow up if you're in Europe. Please follow up with the ebba.org, follow the project or the organization, support it in any way you can. It is exactly the type of things we hope to see around the world.
Great. Thank you very much, Fred, for this opportunity and for the community to join this session. And yeah, we are looking forward to connect on all channels with you and yeah, becoming even a better community and sharing best practice.
You guys are already good. All right, just hang here and maybe answer any other questions. And let's see. Clifford, I just promoted you to moderator. You still have about 5 more minutes, Lucas, so yeah. So Clifford, you can join the audio, and I'm actually gonna drop out for a moment. I'll hand it over to Brendan, who can do the introduction.
Whenever else I'm presenting, I'm more technical, and I know this community is very technical, but I tried to make it short and on the point. But I want to refer also to use this minute, perhaps, that we have aggregated like a list of great tools and resources, and you will find all these links also popping up on the website. So that will be our main hub. So really, please have on a regular base our Twitter account in eyes. We will inform whenever there is an update on the website. Okay. Thank you very much, and nice Cliff.
Thank you so, thank you so much, Lucas. Alrighty, and so first and foremost, I want to say thank you, Cliff, for participating, and thank you everybody who has also joined. So a little background on Cliff. So Cliff has extensive experience in higher education. So he had experience working at Auckland University of Technology in New Zealand, and most recently he's working at Monash. His background is in innovation, business intelligence, and solution delivery, as well as he covers the last 30 years of enormous technological change. He's done talk at Moodle, very, very in-depth experience, and it's a pleasure to have him over here. And so Cliff, I will pass it over to you. Oh, we don't have any sound. Cliff, I think you just need to rejoin with the microphone because I think you joined as listen only. We'll just give him a second there just to join back.
Hi everyone, Jess Greenberg here. I'm one of the moderators and organizers for Big Blue Button World this year. Cliff, I see that you are getting listen only as an option. What you're going to need to do is leave the room completely, and then when you come back in, we're going to promote you to like a moderator, and then you're going to turn your mic on. So yeah, if you give me just a moment, we can actually see if you can be promoted right now. So try turning on your microphone now, and if that doesn't work, we will have you leave and come back in. And while we're waiting for Cliff's microphone to work out, I just want to thank everyone again for joining. And just a reminder that we will be recording these sessions, and we will go ahead and send out the recordings at the end of the week. So check your emails and keep an eye on our social media. And don't forget to tweet hashtag #BigBlueButtonWorld. Cliff, I see you've got your microphone working.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks so much for joining us.
Excellent. Technical stuff, always good fun. What's the best way of sharing my slides?
Go ahead, and I'm going to make you presenter. Click that blue plus button in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Go ahead and upload your presentation. And well, that's if you want to share a presentation. If you want to share your screen, there should be a button near your microphone, and then you can share your screen.
Let's just share the screen, I think is easiest. Okay, I'm hoping you can see that.
Perfect, awesome. Have a great presentation.
Good. Good morning and good middle of the night from Australia, everybody. It's extremely late here, but very glad to be here to make this presentation. How long have I got? I'll try and move through it. So hi, I'm Cliff Ashford. I'm from Monash University in Victoria in Australia. I'll give you a little bit of context about Monash University. We're an international university. We're scattered all over the world. We are the largest university in Australia with something around 90,000 students. That number is slightly out of date. We are one of the higher ranked universities in the world as well. I think pharmacy is our highest ranked faculty. It's sort of number 2 or number 3 in the world. So we've got a little bit of impact even at the far side of the planet from you all. Okay, a little bit of background story for you all. Monash University started a program of work to move from paper exams to digital exams, and we kicked this off about 3.5 years ago. We had a position that we didn't just want to sort of replace paper, but we wanted to do something that would move forward the pedagogical sort of status of the university, free ourselves up from the environment of paper. So that's what we did, and it's been an adventure over the past few years. The way we built this is following these various rules they came up with. We wanted to do enterprise, we wanted to do the whole university at one go and not sort of just do pockets of excellence. We wanted to be secure, we wanted to capture all the data, we wanted to focus on student experience. We didn't want to lock ourselves in with technology, and we didn't want to end up on the front page of any newspapers for the wrong reasons. For that reason, we chose Moodle at the time, and we built an assessment system on top of Moodle. And you're probably all familiar with that platform. And this is what it looked like. We rolled it out over those few years. We rolled it out at massive scale to the university, and we had for a long time before COVID happened the ability to have these huge rooms with laptops in them where the students ran their exams on the platform. That was going extremely successfully, and then at the start of last year, as happened to everybody else in the world, we had a little bit of a surprise. This was the scale we'd gone through. So we started off in early 2018. We started off with about 8% of what we were doing, about 6, 10,000, 37,000, 42,000. Monash University, for reference, runs about 120,000 sittings of exams each semester, with trimesters and rerunning of exams. We run probably well in excess of 300,000 sittings per year, and we run an awful lot of them across the platform. As you can see, we were up to 100,000 seats was the plan for 2020 when we rolled into 2020. And of course, everything changed at that moment. What happened first to us was at the start of 2020, the first lockdowns happened, and the very first exams of the year is what we call the deferred exams from the previous year. So the students who couldn't sit their exam at the end of 2019, some of them were sitting exams at the start of 2020. And that was the first situation where we had a number of students in Australia who we had to sit exams with in sort of COVID-safe environments. But more importantly, we had 100 students, just 100, in China at the time, who had to sit exams, and they couldn't come to the campus because of the initial lockdowns that were in place. So what we did at the time was we brought on board a commercial invigilation solution, which I won't name just now, but we pulled them in and we used them for only 100 students in China. And it was a terrible experience. We had all sorts of technology problems. We had difficulties with the student revolts because the students objected to international software being used. They didn't know where the videos were being stored. They didn't know who the invigilators were. The actual technology was very weak. It caused all sorts of hitches when we tried to use it. When we worked with those 100 Chinese students, we had to individually phone every one of the students and talk them onto the platform to get it working. At the end of it, I think we got like 96 of them through rather than all 100, but we managed to make it work, but it was a terrible experience. So we decided to look at the problem because we knew that COVID-19 wasn't going away for a while. And this is a slide that we pulled together as part of a slide pack for the executive of the university. And we said we've looked at the commercial solutions, we've tried one of them, it didn't work well. But what we can do is offer you these two situations. We can either, on the right, continue with the commercial solution. We'll continue giving money to a third party. We'll continue using people outside the university to invigilate. Or we could look at the left-hand side, which is we spend our money internally. We build our own system. We use our own staff to do the invigilation. We pitched that to the university executive before the start of semester 2. So we had roughly 12 or 13 weeks before the end of semester to pull something together. Those of you who work in universities know that decision-making processes in universities can be a little slow. It was annoyingly slow this time because it took them 6 weeks to make a decision. And at the end of the 6 weeks, they said, yeah, absolutely, go ahead, build this platform for the end of semester. So we were left with roughly 6 weeks to pull something together. This is what we proposed, which is essentially an invigilation solution sitting on some form of video platform, some ability to flag errors while students possibly cheating or something else like that occurring, some ability for us to intervene with the student to either help them or to ask them why they're cheating, using our own staff on our own infrastructure, and our students could be anywhere in the world, was the brief of it all. We also have what we call AAA students, and those are our special needs students who, for one reason or other, can't fit into other areas. They might have vision problems, they might have hearing problems, other things like that. We need to be able to support them. We needed to be able to provide ID checks over the platform. We needed to be able to provide special rooms, a whole variety of things in place. That was the pitch. We were given the go-ahead to do it. We selected Bigbluebutton because we were already using Moodle. We were familiar with open source technology. We'd already taken an open source platform and turned it for something that we wanted to do. So we did the same thing with Bigbluebutton. We did it very quickly. And the very first one, this is at the end of the 6 weeks, this is what we had, because we wrote an entirely new front end for Bigbluebutton and used all the back end libraries to provide the video platform. This was the screen the invigilators had. If they were to invigilate more than one student, which you would need to do, we essentially copied this window 4 times onto the screen. If we tried to go more than about 5 times, it would flatten the laptops we were running it on. So we were sort of running at a 1-to-4 invigilation ratio for our students, using our staff to do the invigilation over that period. As you can see the student, you can see the student's desktop, you can see various things that the invigilator can do. They can flag the student for tech issues or verification issues if we don't like their ID. We wrote a room scanning facility as well, which I'll gloss over for the moment, but also various other things the students can do, toilet breaks, rest breaks. Red flags if there's an overt piece of cheating, or a yellow flag if it just looks suspicious what the student's doing. We can open up the video session to the student. Once we've got the student on board, we can shut down the video so they don't see someone staring at them the whole time, but obviously we're still recording the student, still recording the desktop. That's what it looked like from the student point of view. It worked remarkably well. We built this whole design with the students. So we had a test group of about 100 students to work with us the whole way through, because they were so anti the whole remote invigilation thing. We wanted them to sign off on everything that we did so that they felt comfortable with the whole process. That's what we built. We ran that for semester 1 last year and semester 2 last year, so all of 2020. Very large numbers, an awful lot of invigilators, which cost us a lot of money to do. I had to make a promise to the chief operating officer of the university that I would make this cheaper for 2021, because we could see that COVID-19 wasn't going anywhere, and we'd have to continue doing this. But it also gave us a whole new tool in our repertoire of things that we'd use at the university. Cut to now, I took that photograph about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. That's our students. We had another lockdown. You might have heard on the news that there was a flash lockdown just before our round of exams this year. And we prepared the system so that we could have the students on campus, or if we had to, we could pivot and we could send all the students home and we could just have our invigilators on campus. So that's one of the invigilation rooms that you can see there. Each desk has 2 machines on it. Each invigilator sits there. They have a large screen to see the students. They have the small laptops so they can use chat and things like that. This is e-vigilation, as we called it in the end, version 1. So version 1 is a lot more sophisticated than the previous version you saw. So this is what it looks like. And again, this was built with our UX team, with the students to see the sort of way it would work, and also with our invigilators for how best it would work for them. With this platform, you can take the invigilation up to 1 to 100 with the student. If you look at the left-hand side, you would see 100 students going down there. It's more of a dashboard than an invigilation platform. You can see the students, you can see the situation that they're in. You can see if they're asking for help because they've got a virtual hand in place. We run an AWS AI across the video stream from Bigbluebutton, so we look for suspicious activity like someone picking up the mobile phone or something similar. We also see similar sort of things about whether the student is connected into the exam or whether the student has finished the exam. Little alerts, there's a set of icons turns up against the student's name at the left-hand side. The right-hand side is that panel again where you can flag the student for a tech issue or a health concern or a red or yellow flag depending on the situation. And you can flip again between the desktop and the video stream of the student. That has just, tomorrow is our final day of 3 weeks of exam for this round. It has gone spectacularly well. We just run something in the order of 85,000 sittings through this. It's been wild success. Students are very happy. Academics are happy. It's something we're going to stick with, and it's all down to the flexibility of Bigbluebutton, what a solid platform it is. Something that you can build something entirely from scratch out of in a really short period of time and then pull something really polished like this out of it, given enough time. I think that's one of the other slides you can see. And I suppose that's the presentation. I squeezed it into 15 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cliff. It's really appreciated. Really insightful presentation. And yeah, I encourage anybody who has questions to please write them in the chat. We have around 10 minutes or so to have some dialogue, have some discussion, answer some questions. So like I said, I encourage people to ask them.
Okay, I can respond probably, actually you could, Fred, to that one. Is there an open repo for proctoring solution? So we built this as a bespoke application on top of the Bigbluebutton libraries behind it. The university is currently in the process of commercializing our assessment platform. So the Moodle assessment platform, some of the other associated tools, and now also the invigilation platform that we built on top of Bigbluebutton. And if you don't ask questions, I can easily talk for another 10 minutes about this.
I'm looking through the YouTube live chat here. I don't see any questions. So again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to write it in the chat. We have around 10 minutes or 8 minutes now to talk. So I encourage people, if they have a question, to get it out.
I'm just hoping everybody understood my Scottish accent. Even though I'm in Australia, I am Scottish. Lucas raised his hand.
I wanted to applaud for your Scottish accent.
Thank you for the accent compliments, by the way.
We could just spend the next 8 minutes just complimenting.
Yeah, we could.
I mean, we could do that as well.
More than happy to have all the compliments in the world about Scottish accent. That's fine. I would say, I mean, we've also got a couple of people from my area on this call today. It's been a fairly mammoth thing to do at the university, as I say this, and it's. Fred's been also very helpful because we reached out to Bigbluebutton when we hit a couple of sort of interesting architectural hitches along the way, and it's good to be able to talk through some of the things that we've encountered. Generally, it's gone pretty smoothly, the whole process, but it is a complicated thing and it needs tuning. So we discovered at the start of this round of exams we spent the first couple of days tuning the AWS architecture that we had this all hosted on. It was working, but every so often we sort of run into a slow period. But we now managed to do that because nothing was insurmountable. It was just sort of understanding quite where the load was going on the system. But at the end of it, yeah, it's been absolutely slick for 2.5 weeks with no problems whatsoever. What do we use for room scanning? So the students objected to the third-party solution, or the commercial solutions, because they required them to take the webcam and scan it around the room. And often students, when they're remote, they're in something like their own bedroom or somewhere else where there might be other people. It's just an inappropriate thing to do. So in negotiation with the student, we built a web app that allows you to take a photosphere. And it's a guided photosphere, so you turn your mobile phone around and it'll take a photo each sort of degree you get to, and it'll do high and you'll do low. I think it's 24 images that we take. And the agreement with the students was that the photosphere wouldn't be given to the invigilator that they're talking to. It would be captured and encrypted and dropped onto the servers. And if there was some other reason to suspect some cheating by the student, then what we call the chief examiner, which is the senior academic who's responsible for that exam, they could go through a process by which they're allowed to view this and decrypt that image and have a look at it. So it allayed the fears that they had someone just sort of peering into their personal life for no particular reason. And it provided a sort of a slight sort of technology step up from what everybody else is doing, because personally I think the whole waving the camera about the room trying to look for stuff is just a really sort of amateur way of doing it, where having a nice, elegant, high-resolution photosphere that you can attach back to the evidence of the exam, I think is just an improvement of the whole thing. Again, that took a little bit of time to get right, because those things, they have to be quite slick, and you want it to work on all students' phones, and they all have different phones, so that took a little bit of time. We had a small failure rate at the start, but now I think it's sort of 99% success, and it takes about 3 minutes for the students to scan the room, and while they're scanning, the invigilator can be talking to other students who are coming on, so they can sort of stack up various students who are each doing these various things, and they can take part in it. If it's a high ratio exam, that sort of process of going through and doing scanning of the species actually opens the gate into the exam for them once they've gone through that process. And if you all look on, I've almost certainly got some presentations online somewhere where you can see the room scanning taking place, as well as the use of Bigbluebutton, I think. Thank you. Yeah, it was awesome work. It was my team. I didn't do any of the work, of course. I just watched my team do it all for a few months, but they did some spectacular stuff. They were very impressive and worked. That first push for the 6 weeks, they were working 7 days a week for 6 weeks to pull it off. But yeah, and terrifyingly, they were still coding it the night before the first exams. But it did work, and it worked remarkably well considering we pulled it together so quickly. Crunch time, yeah. We had another one this time because we sort of only finished about the next version, the one you just saw that has the dashboard. We were really still tweaking that. Probably a week before this round of exams, we took it right up to the line. We were still load testing at that point, and load testing is obviously quite important, as you can imagine, with the load we've got. But as we discovered when we went live, load testing all the different situations that can happen. There are some very specific combinations of events that can cause problems with load. So that's why in the end we had to tune it live, because it just was too hard to simulate the detail of it beforehand. We normally load test to 50% more than the load that we expect with the system. Okay. if there's no more questions.
Awesome, Cliff.
I'll thank you all for listening to this. I'm going to go to bed now because it's 2:30 in the morning in Victoria.
Thank you for your dedication and commitment and everything like that to the conference. And again, thank you so much for the insightful presentation and everything like that. It was a real pleasure.
Perfect. Absolute pleasure. Good to see you all, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And like pointed out before, we are recording all these sessions and they'll be available at the end of the week. So everybody will be able to review them on their own time and whatnot. So Cliff, again, thank you so much for coming out, and have a good night.
Thank you. Cheers all. Bye-bye.
For simultaneous translation. Welcome, both of you. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for inviting us. Yes, we have been working the last 10 months together to implement translation into Bigbluebutton. And Christian, he has also a company which is doing a lot of conferences and events like this here. So for whom do you do these conferences, Christian, and why did you need the translation feature? And what kind of other video conferencing tools did you try and probably use, and what were the failures?
Well, I think I can say it all started with the beginning of the Corona crisis, I would say. Then many of our customers started to do like international conferences, not with meeting each other, but they switched to the virtual space. And when that happened, we started to think about, because we are actually coming from e-learning and virtual collaboration. That's basically our business. So we develop platforms for e-learning. And of course, video conferencing is a part of it, but many times not all. But when this crisis started, video conferencing really became the main part of everything. And then we evaluated actually different systems, but we wanted to go open source. And I think Bigbluebutton is the best open source option for video conferencing. And then we started to serve our customers for the international conferences. For example, we have a city network, international city network around all the globe, where different cities participate and exchange ideas, best practices, about let's say city development, and they basically do it also in Bigbluebutton to meet even without traveling and to exchange those ideas. And of course, because it's a multilingual environment, and I think that's where it all came, we started to have this strong need. There needs to be simultaneous translation because we have people from the MENA region that speak mostly Arabic, people from South America that speak Spanish, Portuguese, and then people from Ukraine that maybe and Russian that speak Russian, and people that come from Africa that speak English, and so on. So we have many different languages in our platform, and a strong need for simultaneous translation came up, and we started to basically try out different options. There are different service providers, but we thought there has to be a different way. We know that Zoom, for example, has something like this, but no other tool can offer this. And we started to look for options. How can we realize this in Bigbluebutton? And then when we found you, Roland, and basically that was for us the moment when our cooperation started, and then we started to implement this.
Yeah, Faircom is an open source solution provider and integrator. And in fact, we have been running Jitsi for more than 4 years. We had dived into that deeply. We run also a large Jitsi cluster. We usually rebrand all our open source services because then people can better remember it. Open source sometimes is a little bit not so clear with branding, and people don't really know where to go if they look for open source solution. So Jitsi Meet is called Fair Meeting, simple. And then I was looking for a solution which is offering more features, and Bigbluebutton does. I told my colleagues, and they said, "Are you crazy, Roland? Don't yet put another video conferencing service and host that, because it's a lot of effort," but it paid well. And we had to dive deeply into all the technology and the technological stack of that. And how do you do that? Usually you organize a hackathon. Our colleagues from WeChange in Berlin organized a hackathon in Munich last August, and we got together and were trying to learn how Bigbluebutton works and try to implement additional features. And we finally came out of this hackathon, which took 3 days, with concepts, mock-ups for the translation feature, and then we start programming. Our initial goal, by the way, was to allow audio sharing when you play videos from which from another customer. We had implemented that, and that was also the birth of our own flavor of the HTML5 client. We submitted this as a pull request upstream to the Bigbluebutton community, but now a little bit differently. It has been finally implemented in Bigbluebutton 2.3, so that you can share now also videos and can listen to the audio. This was one of the results of this hackathon. So for the translations, the features which we have implemented is that you can select multiple languages. It's a quite intuitive interface, we think, even if it differs quite from other dashboards which you have from commercial providers of translation tools. It automatically switches back to the floor if the translator stops translating. We have already tested relay translations, so maybe you can explain that. What is a relay translation, Christian? Did you already use that, and how did it work?
Yes, we already used it. It means basically that you translate from another translation. So you get a first translation. Maybe there is a meeting that's in German language and is translated into English. And then maybe you have a translator who cannot speak German, but English and Arabic, and the translator then relates from English to Arabic. So you go via another translation that's basically relay translation.
Yeah, then we had a lot of discussions with the floor volume. What are the challenges here? Sometimes you want to have the floor. The floor is the original voice from the original speaker. Sometimes not. What are your usual phases when you decide that?
Well, basically, the translation should be as understandable as possible. And sometimes you have already, let's say, an international setting, worldwide connections, internet connection quality varies, and so on. So you already have a very difficult setup. And then in our case, for now, we decided to mute the floor when the translation is going and not to play around with some small background translation. But that may change in the future, depending on how we go forward with the tool. And at the moment, we basically use, we cut the floor totally when the translation comes in. And when the translation goes out for a certain time, the floor comes back. That's, of course, is also a challenge, because if the time is too short between this coming back of the floor, a translator will also make a short break during translation. The translator will not talk, I mean, they talk a lot and very quickly, but sometimes they make a break. And in this case, it should not immediately switch back. So it was also a little kind of fine tuning and adjusting until we find the sweet spot, how many milliseconds or seconds we have to wait so that it works good, well. And yeah, but at the moment we have 100% cut of the sound of the floor.
Okay. Yeah, we have others who have some background, so let the floor also in the translated channel as a background channel. So that's how it looks like now. These are some screenshots. So you start defining languages. So the only thing we did, or Dennis and Tony and Martin, our programmers finally did, was touching the HTML5 client part of Bigbluebutton. So we did not go into deeper to any other modules. This limits a little bit what we could do, but we could achieve a lot already with only changing things in HTML5 client. So you set the languages, and then you can here define the detection threshold also of the translator when it changes between letting the flow through and not, and then the translators take their role. A new feature is here on the left, also the flow volume, where you can play around depending on the language which is being translated, also to have the flow volume go through. We could make now quickly a live demo. Maybe we do that later. Features planned, or what else do you need, and what cannot be fulfilled now by the current version of this HTML5 translation client?
Well, basically, we look forward to also record the translation, because obviously, I mean, we already have a recording, and it's an expectation that also the translated audio is recorded, so that you could have it in the video later. And also, of course, another thing that comes to mind in practical use is the multilingual slides. Because once you have a presentation that is like in 4 languages, and some languages are very different from each other, even with different letters, then the standard slide set, one slide set is not enough anymore. So that's something that we work together also with Roland to implement these features. But also other features should be thought of in the future. So at the moment, we are using the moderator's role for everything. And of course, that is a little bit not so ideal, because the translator gets all the moderator functionality. And what we understood during our project is that translators are already under high stress. So if they have lots of buttons and lots of options, that's not very good, and that makes them nervous. So it's better if you can provide a very, very simplified interface that only has the buttons that they need, and a very clear process, because their brain is already used by translating, so they cannot spare another part of their brain for understanding the software. So we have to make it as simple as possible to make it ideal. That's something we have to think about in the future. Also, handover process. I mean, we have a good handover process, but it's not like totally controlled. There could be a way of saying, I'm releasing my translation. I'm still translating. Another person takes over, and when the person takes over, the other translator is like cut out. So a real hard handover process, that is what translator want. maybe also translator chat channel so that they can interact with each other in a protected space. And maybe even when we have the recording, even making it part of the Bigbluebutton player, so that in the Bigbluebutton player you could switch the language afterwards. I think that would be things we would dream of. I think it's not yet in our reach, but these are the ideas that we have.
Yeah, also offering more chat possibilities. I know there's a long thread and issue about that. In fact, also at Faircom, we are looking into this, replacing that chat with Matrix or Rocket Chat. But this is some way to go, and then we probably would have more possibilities also to have one room just for the translators, some kind of back channel. Now we simply open another tab with some other tools with that, but need to be integrated. Yeah. We call that, as we have a thing called Fair Something here at Faircom, Fair Blue. And there was already the question about how we communicate. So in fact, we open another zip channels, and still we have on the HTML5 client all the zip channels, and we can control and have the volume open and close on the HTML5 client level. Well, Bigbluebutton is evolving quickly, and we couldn't take the speed with their development, so we were always a little bit late when we thought now it's time to send a pull request, and so that it gets integrated. And this may even take some more time as we are still refining that HTML5 version. Yeah, it's certainly open sourced, and it includes also some installation instructions because you need to manually replace the HTML5 client if you install that. Now I give a short share the screen so that you see how this looks like live. So here, this is one of our demo servers from our other partners we change. And here I can set the languages. I add the languages, and I say here, well, maybe it's German. And it's Spanish. Oh, it seems I have a German interface here. And then I start the translation process. And then I get here the volume rulers for the background, floor, level. And here you see now new buttons coming on the top, on the bottom for the translators. They take their language. So if I would say I can translate into German, I take that role. And now you probably heard in the background opening another zip channel where I'm the only one in my room where I translate to German. And if you would now enter as listeners, you would get here, here it is. You can here now select in this world button these other languages which are being translated. So we implemented that here on the bottom very simply. Okay, going back to the slides. Yeah, that was it. What is our background? We do open source consulting since more than 20 years as a network of consultants. We have an office with people who do marketing, sales, etc., and support. We try to make open source as easy consumable as possible. So that's why most of them, we rebrand them, and we know how to integrate and combine them. For example, yesterday we heard about Klaus' extension of Nextcloud, which we already have included in FairCloud, where you can start now a Bigbluebutton conference just by clicking on a PDF, and then immediately your room starts with the PDF in the conference. And certainly we try to be, we are GDPR compliant, which is really a topic in Europe. And there is not at any service, any US-based cloud service involved. So no Amazon, no Google, nothing, just European-based. This is one of our USPs. Christian, what is your business?
So yeah, we are a digital solution provider for learning, knowledge management, and collaboration. Very often, or most of the time, in multilingual environment, you can see the little map there. These are all places where we have projects currently. And basically we provide platforms where people can interact, not only through video conferencing, but also asynchronously, like an e-learning platform or like a social network platform or an internet platform. And we integrate this with video conferencing tools and chat tools and other tools so that there is a full experience. And we support our customers also in how to, let's say, develop this, how to brand this, how to build this up, how to run it later. And even inside of the video conferencing, how to do the video conferencing in a good way, how to moderate it, and so on. So we try to be like a one-stop shop for this type of platform solutions. Yes, and then basically we do a lot of conferencing now at the moment because that's one of the main, let's say knowledge management and collaboration tools that are currently used to gap like the impossibility of travel. Up to now, and we'll see how that develops. But I think the video conferencing came to stay. Maybe it will change a little bit. People will start to travel again now. But at the same time, video conferencing is an option, and people have understood that it's always an option to do a video conferencing. Sometimes it's very good to travel and to meet each other, but not all the time. Sometimes we can save also, let's say, also for better climate, we can save some flights. And also replace this by using video conference more often, also for workshops, for projects, and so on. So this is basically what we do and where we try to support our customers.
Yeah, thank you, Christian, for sponsoring this development. Also, WeChange was sponsoring this extension for Bigbluebutton, and it was no issue at all that they immediately agreed that they shall be open sourced at the end. We are ready here now for answering questions. I'm trying to read now in the chat.
Just want to say a few words while people type questions in the chat. Roland, Christian, thank you for the presentation. We'll take questions. And thanks also for making it open source. You had made comments about the Bigbluebutton project is moving quickly. It has. Sometimes it feels like it's been moving slowly. Once we get past 2.3, yeah, our intent is to try to get 2.4 out before the end of the summer. Probably want to try to build on top of that. We'll be doing maintenance updates to 2.3, and definitely want to collaborate a little bit closer just so we can see when we can get this in. And there's UI stuff as well, but it's not an area that we're going to spend a lot of time on. And the core, based on if you saw the presentation from yesterday, there's lots of things that we want to do for engaging students and the instructor, but an interface for live translation is something that others in the community have certainly asked about. So in the choice between no capabilities and a capability, which maybe could be iterated over time and improved, we'll definitely choose a capability. So thank you again for making this work and making it possible. We can merge it at some point. I turn it over to the floor. If you have questions for Christian or Roland, please type them in the chat. And then Reimer, I'll just maybe answer yours directly. Will this become a feature in 2.4? Not at the moment. Trying to make sure we already got an alpha out for 2.4, trying to get to beta next month in July, and then get to release candidates in August. The whole goal is to do shorter release cycles, which means that if a feature doesn't get in for our release cycle, it's not a long time for the next release cycle. So this may be something that's subsequent to 2.4, just knowing that if we get a really solid 2.4 out for the community, everybody benefits from, and then there will be a bunch of features that we want to get in that we can queue up for a subsequent release.
So there was also the question from Brian about the API. No, there is no API yet, also because we are only touching the HTML5 client and have not changed anything server side below. But if we need more roles, for example, this is probably the next step to go. Yeah, I answered that with the volume also. It's really done on the Advocacy level, on the client side. Can the interpreters see how many people are listening to them? Not yet. So probably there any question in the stream. I have not opened that. Fred, do you see the stream?
I'm just going to check here. No, I don't see any questions in the stream. Let me just make sure I'll do a refresh here.
Okay.
No. There is ample time in this session for questions. So Stephen asks, does it work with 2.3?
Yes, it's now working with 2.3 since 1 week. There is a branch, a 2.3 branch.
Nice. And actually, if you could cut and paste that branch into the chat. I know it came up on a slide.
It's in the slides, yeah. I paste that in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably I have to say again, also thank you to everybody who helped with that. These are Dennis, Tony, Martin as developers, then Jens and Marcus from Rechange, who did a lot of testing, and we had really a very tricky problem with echo cancellation. Oh yeah, that's a story we can still tell. So there wasn't, everything worked fine in most cases. But then what happened, Christian? What were the situations when translators were not really well heard and their voice was somehow always worse than the floor?
Yeah. Basically, the problem became that translators would have a different quality of audio in the translation channel than in the main channel. So basically their audio translation would be kind of skewed or reduced in quality very much, so that it became also hard even to understand them. But that was not consistently happening. It did not happen, for example, I think on the Linux machines that we often use. It also did not happen on Macs. I think it only happened on Windows, if I'm right. I'm not sure. But anyways, it was very much connected with the OS. And I think some things that happened in the different browsers. So it was quite a long time that we needed to find what actually was behind, right?
Yeah, so it was very hard to reproduce. I had here on this table, I had 6 computers with different operating systems and mobile phones, and trying to find out when this happens. And it really it was a hard one. It took us weeks to see and to reproduce that. And we came then to the idea that it is only on Windows with Chrome browsers with a certain hardware, which does echo cancellation automatically of the floor to that what the translator is speaking. So the floor sound was always subtracted to the microphone signal of the translator. And that was the simple reason why, independent of the WebRTC settings, why the quality of those translators was always low or not understandable. So we have put that out and also played around with noise suppression. WebRTC has a lot of mathematics inside. So it does a lot of voice processing when we talk here, reduces the noise, echo cancellation, etc. And we had to really fine tune that for all circumstances and make a lot of asking what kind of operating system is it, what kind of browser is it, to always find the best solution for the translators to have the best quality and sound. Yeah, browser updates finally didn't help because it was really tied very clear also to the operating system at some point. There is also the question about we need some kind of plugin features or plugin system in Bigbluebutton. Yes, maybe this is another topic. We felt also that we really should hook into some points. We can use the API. Yes, that's okay. But I think we gathered a lot of experience now how a plugin system could work with the HTML5 client and how that should be, how the architecture should look like.
I'll just say a word too. Like, we thought about this for quite a few years, and probably the expression of it so far is embedding the HTML5 player for YouTube or PeerTube or any video, like the inside of the presentation area. So we're using events and callbacks to sort of like advance the YouTube player when other users are advancing it. There's no formal API for this. There's no plugin architecture yet. There was another discussion, I think, in a previous session on H5P, very popular tool for interacting. So there isn't anything currently underway to try to figure out like a plugin architecture for Bigbluebutton. I think in the project, we're just looking to settle down many of the components. So in 2.3, a lot of refactoring occurred in the messages, the public chat, the backend server. You can see from Paulo's presentation yesterday that there's going to be some changes that we're going to make to the backend media server. There's lots of options out there: MediaDose, MediaSoup, Janus. And I think these are probably bigger impacts for the community, but as the product sort of architecture settles down where we're not maybe refactoring as much and move ourselves up to more features, we can then sort of step back and say, okay, if this pieces are not going to change, and how can we build in an architecture for like a plugin and make it easier to build stuff like this?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we should talk, if you have here on the line now, Fred, how is the review process? So if a community like us is doing such changes or add some value to some of the parts of Bigbluebutton, in our case, the HTML5 client. So I think we already said, hello, we do it and in the development group, and there is also an issue where we presented it. How is the review going on? Is somebody from your team, from the maintainer team, then looking at some point at our branch, or should we, because it's probably not yet ready for a pull request, because we probably should wait for somebody from the user interface team also to have their say and look at how we did it.
It's really reaching out to us, like myself or any of the committers, and like Roland, you guys have been really good. You've done the you did the hackathon last year. We saw it. We were so heads down. We just didn't have. We were busy modifying Bigbluebutton. We didn't feel like we needed to do more modifications. But what I'll do is I'll follow up afterwards, because this is at a level where we want to work closely with you. And the example for the background blur was a good example where they we had a couple of meetings with them. They're very informal, but just to make sure they're on the right track. And this feature, that background blur, was a little more localized and like translation. So there is a UI part that we have. Tyler Copeland has been working on the UI for Bigbluebutton for many years. And we would want to bring in and maybe do a review and do an update. You've got the pieces. It looks like you're definitely solving the use case. You're far more closer to it than we are. So what I'll do is I'll follow up after the summit here, and we'll set up a meeting where we can connect directly, and we'll kind of lay out possible roadmap, things that you'd like to do, things that we may want to see it changed, and we would have to get some folks on the core committers to review it. And so it'd be a bit of a process back and forth, but we can do it in the open, in an issue, get to a place where there's a pull request, start going back and forth so everybody can see it, and others can collaborate on it as well.
Okay, good. So we wait with the pull request and say again hello on the development group mailing list that we are ready now with the 2.3 version, and then wait for some opportunity to somebody to talk to and have a closing.
I'll email you right after the session and set up a time.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people are suggesting here that all these settings, which you probably need in some special conference settings, like auto gain, echo cancellation, etc., should become a setting, probably even per conference or at least per server. This is also an option we should have somewhere in future.
Yeah. So there's a plugin architecture would enable you to have settings. It's something that will need to merge into core, just because there will be we don't have a plugin architecture. But that's not a big thing. I mean, the settings is designed to be modular. I mean, there's like a section interface, so we could have other settings there. One that's specifically for live translation.
Okay.
Okay, we still have a few more minutes. We can hang around for a little bit more.
Sure. We can show something else, like again, integration in Nextcloud, how we did that. Let me see if I can show that screen now. Yeah, let me share this one. So here is a lot of things which I did today, and just 3 hours ago I had a presentation with the Austrian Creative Commons community. Another hat I'm wearing since many years that I take care of Creative Commons here in Austria. And we gave a presentation. Well, it was organized by the municipality of Vienna, and they had a proprietary video conferencing system, WebEx. But if they would have chosen Nextcloud, which is here, as their backend to manage all their files and data, they could have immediately started the conference this way. So Klaus already presented the integration. It's a very nice app which you can integrate into Nextcloud. And then I go here to test room, so you can do some things with this PDF, and I can start immediately with the test room. It starts, it says, let's go. Do you really want? We want. And then it should open a conference room, including, well, I just listen because otherwise I have problems. And it immediately starts with my presentation files, the conference. So I define in Bigbluebutton, in Nextcloud, all my rooms, which I have, for example, classes. And then I can start in any class immediately my presentations as the physics or in my English lessons or whatever I have. And then I show here all the things which we had presented just before. Yeah, that's a very nice implementation of Bigbluebutton also, which we are really promoting, and we would like to see more of that, because Nextcloud is a really famous and very successful open source project. These are our most loved applications. There's a web mailer in it. Certainly you have contacts and you can synchronize that. I'm telling this because it's really an alternative to MS Teams. And that's what we probably want and need and want to offer also. You have everything what you have in the Microsoft world, where you have with G Suite or Google. And it really also synchronizes with your Android or with your iPhone. You can define circles here, so you can define your groups, who has access to which resources, to which calendars, or to which folders. Yeah, you have your notes. There's a very nice app also for Android where you can manage your notes offline or online. You can manage your bookmarks. Finally, we have a place with all your bookmarks. That is very nice for managing projects. It's like a Kanban board. You can manage your boards. Well, I don't have many here because I usually use GitLab. You can make polls and you can make forms. Next time at your conference, Fred, probably you don't want to use Eventbrite, but simply create a form in Nextcloud and gather here.
I know. I've gotten flack from others of like, okay, you guys do open source. Why are you using other tools that are not open source? And look,
yeah,
they work.
In a GDPR compliant way, you can collect your email addresses because these are personal data. And as you know, we Europeans have some problems with the direct access possibility of US administrations to cloud providers without any court decisions. And that's in principle the difference of our data security levels. Yeah, and here are the meetings, and here I can manage my rooms. I can add here more rooms, and I can manage here the rooms. Where is that? Yeah, here. No, I have not used that too much yet. It's here. Okay. Here I can manage which kind of room I want to start. I can even say which groups should then join the Bigbluebutton room. I can add moderator access via URL with an external URL. It's managed by this app, and I can set here if recording should be started or not, or if media check should be used, the echo test or not, because it's quite annoying for students who do it all the time. You can do this all the time.
And this is the integration that Klaus did. Is that the integration that Klaus did? He presented yesterday on the next slide integration.
That's exactly what Klaus did. And that's in fact what we do at FreeCloud. We try to integrate as many services together. Nextcloud does it in a very well way with Klaus apps. And then you can have everything what you need for your daily work in a professional way, or for your NGO, or for administrations, including conferencing. And that's how we can compete with MS Teams, I think.
Nice. I think we're going to need to bring you back, Roland, for the next conference to talk about the Nextcloud.
What all the integrations, what we usually also do is we do all the single sign-on management. Because usually if you go into an enterprise, they have their users, they have somewhere an Active Directory or some other identity management system, and you have to put all the things together because that's expected by the users, that you only have to log in once. That's what we do, for example, with Nextcloud and Bigbluebutton. You do not have to re-log in or register several times. This is the horizontal integration, which we also have to fulfill. Yeah. Okay, did you fill up the empty talk space now?
I have something else to show if you still have a minute of time.
We have a minute or two. The next session will start in 5 minutes. And maybe let me just give a plug for it.
I just make it very quick.
Go for it, Christian.
So basically what we have done is we have developed the new integration for Bigbluebutton and Drupal. So Drupal is a content management system that you can use, and this is what we use for building our platforms, for example. And we have basically, I'll just share my screen quickly. You can now find it also on Drupal.org already. Let's say the current version. There are 3 modules now, and we are going to publish a 4th module in very shortly. So basically, there is the Drupal solution that you can use to integrate Bigbluebutton with Drupal. Also posted here in the chat. And that's what we use for our conference pages, for example. So this is just an example of one of our projects where we do the conferences, and basically Bigbluebutton is integrated in all the conference. I cannot go deeper because it's also personal protection of personal data. There are people discussing in the rooms, but I'm going to go on our website. So just as an example, you can set up an event in Drupal, a new event, and inside of the event, you will then find, I'm not going to fill it out now, but if you go below, you will find virtual event option. You can enable this session. And then basically you enable a Bigbluebutton session inside of Drupal with some options. And then basically you can simply join from Drupal directly into the Bigbluebutton room and join to the conference. And that is also quite a good, let's say in our case, a good replacement for Greenlight, because we use this also for other, let's say for other communication, networking inside of the platform.
Nice. So you already have folks signing into Drupal for various components. This is now an additional one. It doesn't require you to go external to something like Greenlight. You can do it inside the Drupal environment.
Exactly. It's totally integrated. There is a module that speaks to the API of Bigbluebutton and lets you create Bigbluebutton meetings inside of Drupal.
And I'm interested to ask more, because there was someone yesterday asking about the WordPress plugin, which we had worked on and have not touched in years, just other priorities. Is this a purpose-specific plugin for Drupal, or is it like a generic Drupal plugin that if you have a Drupal site and you want to have collaboration, you could drop this in?
Yeah, this is basically a general plugin that you can use and integrate, and it basically can be attached to any Drupal entity. So you can normally you create a node that you call event, and then on this node you will attach it to this node. But you can attach the Bigbluebutton room to any Drupal entity, so you can use it to build your own solution on Drupal. It's a general purpose module. But we also develop an additional integration module that integrates it with, I don't know if you know, OpenSocial. OpenSocial is a Drupal distribution for social collaboration, and we have like a module that integrates it exactly with the OpenSocial way of doing things, but that's just something on top of it. So the module itself is totally generic.
Okay, I'm going to reach out to Christian. I've already sent you, Roland, an email to set up a meeting next week to talk about the live translation. Just the Drupal project right now, there hasn't been much love in the plugin, and this might be a better path forward. Okay, guys. I'll stop the recording in a moment. You can certainly stay here and answer more questions, but let me just formally thank both of you, Christian and Roland, for sharing the awesome work that you guys have done in providing an interface and capabilities for live translation in Bigbluebutton. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, give me a moment here. I just got to switch the live stream over.
Hello, everyone. I see there's tons of participants starting to stream in. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our final session of Bigbluebutton World 2021. My name is Jess Greenberg. I'm one of the moderators and organizers of this conference, and I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who made this event possible and all of the participants for joining us throughout the past 4 days and just being awesome contributors to the Bigbluebutton community. So in this final time slot, we will have two presenters. We're going to start off with Felipe Secoño, and he will be followed by Tiago Jacobs. Felipe is the CEO of MConf and will be presenting on Bigbluebutton and open source online learning. Thank you for joining us, Felipe.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy to be here to speak to you today. I want to thank you for the opportunity and also to congratulate the organization of the event. It has been great so far. We are looking forward to have a next one. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the 10 years of collaboration between MConf and Bigbluebutton, and I will go through a few moments in this history and how did we get here. So I'm the CEO at MConf. I'm a core committer of the Bigbluebutton project since 2011. So we started back in 2010 as a research group in Brazil. I'm speaking from Porto Alegre, Brazil, by the way. So we started as a research group in a university, and we had one main goal of building, designing a web conferencing service for public research and education institutions in Brazil. The project was funded by the Brazilian NREN, RNP, and the NREN is responsible for providing connectivity and services for all the Brazilian public universities and research institutes. So we had this main goal, and when we started looking at the options we had back in the day, we found Bigbluebutton as an open source project, and basically it had most of the requirements that we wanted. We looked for other options as well, but Bigbluebutton was the best option at that moment. So this is Bigbluebutton back in 2011. It was a Flash client. It had the presentation, it had the chat, the participants, the videos. This is the first implementation of the layout manager that we did back in the day. But why did we choose Bigbluebutton? So it had a lot of features that we wanted for our project. It was open source, so it was possible to extend the project for what we needed. It had a very good documentation on how to use it, on how to build it, and it had a very active community. And in 2011, Bigbluebutton had only 2.5 years. So it was in the very early stages of the project, but it was already something that worked very well. And looking at the current state and the current open source projects for web conferencing on the educational market, probably all these 4 items are still true, and we would probably choose Bigbluebutton again nowadays. And we had some initial requirements. We wanted to build a mobile client. We wanted better organized videos through a video doc. We wanted share notes, layout manager, and we needed some other stuff which was outside Bigbluebutton, such as web portal. Greenlight didn't exist back in the day, and we needed to be scalable. This is a few images of BBB Android. It was a mobile client, a native client for Android, and it had all the core functionality. It was possible to interact with the Flash client and so on. It was very interesting times. And video conferencing on mobile was not something very popular as it is today. So that was our first contribution to the project. It was licensed as open source. Many people built upon it, and I believe that was the moment that we start collaborating in a daily basis with the core developers of Bigbluebutton. But why did we contribute back to the open source? Because we could just take the code and implement what we needed. I think that the first reason is that because we like open source and we like to contribute. All the people involved in the project back in the day was very interested in open source, and it is still is the case today. But we also wanted to move faster and with higher quality, and we had a very reduced team. So it was a chance to collaborate and to speed up development. We wanted to work with smart people across the globe, and it was a perfect opportunity. And also, more important than that, we want to impact more people with our work and add more value to the world. And I'm very glad with this item here because due to the pandemic, Bigbluebutton has been used by a lot of people, and we saw the contributions we gave to the project being used heavily by a lot of people in the world. And MConf has been involved with the Bigbluebutton Foundation since the beginning as well. And I will take just a moment to mention that early today, Stephen Mugee talked about the foundation, and I'd like to invite all of you individuals and organizations to join the foundation. It's a great way to contribute to the project. So just to highlight a few of the contributions we had along the way. So we built API Mate, which is very known by all developers for Bigbluebutton. It generates all the URLs to interact with the API. We developed more recently BBB Playback, which is the new format of recordings playback on Bigbluebutton 2.3. It loads faster and it has a better layout and also better compatibility with mobile. And also it's more easier to extend and to maintain. We built Bigbluebot, which is a way to connect fake users for load testing purposes. So these fake users can connect to a room, share audio, share video, and then we can observe what happens to the server during the test. And also video features like the pagination, the dynamic profiling. These are the things that we have been, we saw with our users that sometimes they were struggling in some situations, and a few modifications on the video part made all the difference. And we have been able to improve a lot the video experience on 2.2, which was very important for the huge growth in usage due to the pandemic. And also the new media architecture, which is work in progress. Paulo presented yesterday. I recommend everyone to take a look if you didn't see. It was very nice to see how the project will evolve in terms of the media architecture. And more core development. So we work as part of the core developers team. We are responsible for some specific areas of the product, but we also help building new features, fixing bugs, and so on. Just to take a moment to remember our first Bigbluebutton Developer Summit. It was just 4 people, myself included, back in 2012 in Ottawa, Canada. I think, Fred, we don't look much older today, but it's very nice to remember when the history of the Developer Summits started. It was very, very nice, and we had 14 editions so far. I don't know. Somebody told me that it was 15 editions, but I think it was 14, and 6 of them we had the pleasure to host here in Porto Alegre with a lot of developers coming from abroad. And the last summit was in 2019, and we had over 25 developers involved. So it has become a huge event. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of there is a lot of discussions and hacking into the project. It's very nice, and I'm really looking forward to the next one after the pandemic. Since we founded MConf, we have been very active doing video conferencing related projects, mostly in the educational market, but also exploring some other markets. I just want to mention a few of them. So we did a project for medical training. It used IP cameras, and it was all web. And the most important part of this project was that we learned a lot, and we built the knowledge to create the first video implementation for the HTML5 client. If you guys remember the early days of the HTML5 client, video was the missing part. We had the client, we had the audio, the whiteboard, but the video was still to be developed. And then we have been able to understand how to create the first implementation, and we have been evolving since then. We also implement a court hearing system. It was used for recording with remote participants by web and phone. We had post-processing recording transcriptions using a third-party service. We had transcription editing and also deep integration with digital justice system. It was a very interesting project in a different market outside of the educational market. And also remembering the first slide of my presentation when we started developing a web conferencing solution for the Brazilian NREN. So it's currently being massively used in Brazil. They saw growth over 1,000% due to the pandemic. It's now being used by more than 200 public research and educational institutions in Brazil. And it's also integrated to other services such as the traditional video conference service and EduPlay, which is kind of the YouTube for the education market. And after all, we learned a lot during this time. We have now 10 years with experience building on top of Bigbluebutton, and based on all this knowledge, we launched 3 years ago Elos, which is built for the education market. It has a portal for personal rooms, but it's also integrated through LTI and API and all the Bigbluebutton integrations. We have developed a lot of monitoring, load balancing tools, analytics. We have scalable recording processing. We have a solution to connect SIP with video, not just audio through FreeSwitch. We have a live streaming capability also with questions, so we can have sessions with a lot of people connected, interacting through questions, but considering the limits in terms of participants on Bigbluebutton. So this way we can extend the limits. We have a stopwatch timer collaboration through Google Drive. So in summary, we have been very active in the Bigbluebutton community, contributing to the open source, and we also created a service with a lot of value added for the education community. And this is my team. We are mostly located in Porto Alegre, Brazil. Some of us are remote. All of us are remote due to the pandemic, but most live in Porto Alegre. And I want to thank you again for listening. I will be glad to answer any questions if you have. And also thanks for the opportunity again.
Felipe, thank you for sharing that. Such good memories. So just on a personal note, I have known Felipe for 12 years now, probably more. And MConf has been an invaluable contributor. And I think the story you tell shows how commercial companies can benefit and grow faster by both contributing to open source projects and building on top of open source projects. And if you've been reading the developer forums over the years, it's really important that companies in the Bigbluebutton ecosystem are able to build sustainable business models that enable them to grow, as MConf has done. And with that growth, more contributions come back. So when, Felipe, if you could put the previous slide on Ilios, like these features are value added that MConf has provided. So it takes nothing away from the open source of Bigbluebutton. Many companies have provided their own value add around the project. I want to point out that many of the value adds that Felipe has built out, his team has built out over the years, have found their way back into Bigbluebutton without any requirement or any asking. So if you go back to the next slide, the last one, looks like some of these people are really young. So I am really looking forward to seeing the MConf team continue to grow, continue to create value-added products which let them generate revenue. And they've been such a great contributor back to the project. I can't say enough good things. That the project, I do not think, would be where it is today without MConf, and there's Tiago's, his company, coming up next, really contributing back in a big way to open source and getting behind the Bigbluebutton project to make sure it's successful.
Thank you very much, Fred. And I want to just tell a bit on how the Bigbluebutton community has been welcoming to us at the beginning when we didn't know that we could contribute back something, and it has been a great experience for us so far. Everything improved a lot in the process, but I want to mention that for other organizations that still do not contribute back to the project, that just to tell that the Bigbluebutton project is very welcoming others to contribute, to discuss ideas, to review code, to suggest new ways to look at a problem. So it's a very welcoming and friendly environment. And I saw that Mark put a question on the chat. Are all the features you have embedded in Elo's open source? No. The answer to this is no, Mark. Today we have a bunch of value-added features which are not on the open source, but as Fred said, most of them eventually get integrated back into the core. So we don't let the community re-implement or reinvent the wheel. So if there is a big interest in some item, and the desire for the community to develop, usually what we do is to just open source and contribute back to the project. It has been this way with a lot of what you see today on Bigbluebutton, such as the share notes, the network activity indicator, and many other things.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. For the live streaming, I can't recall, Fred. Did Gazi spoke about the?
He was unable to make his presentation, but I think you're going to see more about his work on Sprout Bees, and I think which is already being used. So definitely want to provide Gazi some way to make it more visible to the community what he's doing, with the intent of making it available to the community. So he wasn't able to present, but I think the question to go back to, like Mark, companies, it would not be uncommon to see companies build out the needed features for Bigbluebutton in their ecosystem or in their commercial offerings. And at some point, 2 or 3 companies may do something similar. And then at some point, this comes back into the core in a way that benefits everybody. So I think there's a couple solutions out there for live streaming. Without making any promise on when, it would not be unexpected for at some point live streaming to come back into the core. It's just a little tricky though, because you do need to have extra servers to do the live streaming. It's not trivial. And that's why if it was easy, it probably would have been put in the core. But when things are high value and require extra complexity and extra hosting resources, those are really good candidates for a hosting company to have the resources to offer. So live streaming is a really good example of it. And it does require a lot more moving pieces. And it's a good candidate for something that's offered on a commercial basis. But other projects out there are working on it as well. Okay, I think, Felipe, stay with us because Tiago's going to talk. And I'm looking forward to Tiago's talk as well. And then maybe at the end, because we will be at the end of the summit, we will leave ourselves open for more questions and more interaction with the community. So
very good. Thank you, everyone.
All right, Tiago, feel free. I'm going to give you here a brief introduction. Wow, Tiago, you wrote like 10 words. There's more to it. So I want to welcome Tiago Jacobs. Like Felipe, I've known Tiago for many years. Tiago is the CEO of IMDT, which is surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, only about an hour's drive away from MConf in Brazil. So whatever happened, the two companies that have been on the forefront of contributing to the Bigbluebutton project over the last 10 years were literally like within a couple, I think 100 kilometers from each other, probably less. So Tiago Jacobs is the CEO of IMDT since 2004. He's been a core committer of the Bigbluebutton project since 2011. And I just want to say that I've had the pleasure of working with Tiago over the years. One of the benefits of being involved in an open source project is you get to work with really smart people like Felipe and Tiago. And it's my pleasure to let Tiago share how he has been involved in the Bigbluebutton project over the years and the work at IMDT. Over to you, Tiago.
Thank you, Fred. Well, first, thank you, Felipe. As Fred said, your contributions and MConf and since the beginning was no words for that. Thank you very much. And my story is a little before Bigbluebutton, because my goal here is to talk to maybe someone that think it's impossible or too difficult to start contributing to open source. So I hope that it's not boring, but let's try that. If I can touch one or two people to start contributing, this presentation already did it. So welcome everyone. Thanks for being here, and let's start. Okay, when we founded IMDT, I founded it with Diogo, Michele, that are my brother and my sister, and we had no idea of what kind of problem we was going to solve. We just wanted to work with technology. It was 2004. We was in Campo Bom, a small city. As Fred said, it's close to Porto Alegre, but really different. Porto Alegre is the downtown of the state, and we are like in a small place. So yeah, we just wanted to be working with technology, and we learned it by doing. So it's different from another companies that start with a great idea or something like that. We just wanted to do something. So we got good customers. They had not a lot of choices, so why not? And it always started with a small project, like a website, and then we was getting bigger and bigger challenges, like websites, e-commerces, CRM, data warehouse, and can you do it? Yes, why not? Let's do. And 2004, 2005, 2006, no project was like difficult enough. So yeah, let's do it. We became self-confident. So we started to believe that everything is possible. And we created a small marketing campaign that in every email we were sending this sentence: impossible is just a force inviting you to achieve. So we're basically saying that nothing is impossible. And one day in 2006, a customer called me and said, we need a web conferencing software. Can you do it? And well, web conference, no way. I explained to him that it was something for big companies. I will not mention, but there was one big company with web conferencing software at that time. And I explained that we didn't have enough experience in this kind of technology. And I remember that this customer replied to me, well, but according with your email signature, impossible is just a force inviting you to achieve. You're not feeling invited? What's happening? So yeah, I had no choice. I had to accept the project. we got something that worked, but as said, we had no idea of exactly what we was doing. So I basically created a Java applet that was communicating over a local network with a native application, capturing video and audio from the devices. And we got an incredible 2 frames per second. Well, the pros is that it worked. And the cons is that we had no compression, no encoding. It was really hard to maintain. It worked with specific devices, so it required a really specific set of conditions to work. And it required a software installation because the capturing was being done by the local application. Okay, the customer really appreciated that and asked, can we improve it? But I've basically created my own protocol to transfer video and audio in a way that it could be played in the other side. And I had no idea how to improve. That was the best. I was, well, should we zip the stream? What should we do? I don't know. So walking alone in this path, I could go up to a certain point, and I was in my limit. But the customer was sure that we could improve, and giving up was not an option at that moment. They already invested money, they already committed with the next version, and we had to do something. And well, myself and my brothers started to look for existing libraries or components, and finally we discovered that Flash could be an option. The same Flash that we was creating animated websites. At that time, it was very popular. So, well, we can have a system that can be animated too. And it had the media stuff, so capturing devices and things built in. So one problem that we found was that the part that would solve our problems, that was the media platform, was a paid component, Flash player, Flash media server. And more than that, there was a very limited information about it. It was hard to learn Flash media server at that moment. So I found Red5. And it was a free server with free documentation, and we had the ability to understand how it works by looking into its source code. It was like a miracle. That's why the sound effect. And this is how I bumped into the open source. So it was by this requirement to improve the software. It took only 3 months to get amazing results. So we could replace all that stuff we made by Flash plus Red5. And we simplified the client-side source code from CPP that was used in the library and the local application and the Java applet to ActionScript. That was much simpler, no memory problems, just worked. No software installation. It was multi-platform, better voice quality, and better video quality, 30 FPS, much more than we had. And to not mention the usage of bandwidth that was much smaller. So anyone can contribute. When I started with Red5, I started making questions. And then with that questions, I learned it. And then I started sharing what I learned. I started to report issues, to propose solutions, and to send contributions. And after a while, learning a lot, hard work, late nights, and I became a core committer of Red5. It was a great recognition. Being a core committer of Red5, I improved many parts of Red5. RTMP client. I remember working in that because I created a cluster where you could have, because at that time, high-speed internet was not available. So we had a local server inside the company, a remote server in a data center, and we wanted that the local meetings happening inside the company was happening in one server and remote meetings in another. So I invested a lot of time in the RTMP client. So if 2 people was inside the company, the meeting would happen inside the local server. When 1 people joined it in the cloud, at that time it was not using the name cloud, but in the data center, Red5 started a connection and created the fake presence. So it was publishing the media. So we needed to emulate a client from the server. So that's why I invested lots of time in RTMP client. The Play engine that was used basically to send packets from one side to the other, but as internet quality was really bad at that time, we had to invest a lot of time in like, okay, should I send this packet or discard? Because Red5 was receiving packets and had the mission to distribute it to all the viewers. And at some point, if the viewer was not receiving fast enough, you need to discard the packets. So I invested lots of time in this. The RTMPS, that was basically HTTPS, the RTMPT around TLS. FLV writer, I invested time in that to try to improve the sync of audio and video in the FLV recordings. And as I mentioned, the packet dropping stuff. And after touching all parts of Red5, I finally implemented the support to H264. It was a great achievement. And I remember the day that it worked. It was like, oh, I did it. Pretty nice. So yeah, it changed the way that we was working, because before we was coding satisfied with, well, it works. And after we started to contribute and to work with Red5 and with the open source, it was always looking the best way to code to be approved. Because if we write a bad code, we would send the contribution and they would say, no, we don't want it. And this was a great step forward for us. Coding to ourselves. And after we was learning the do and the don'ts from experts. So imagine I was sending contributions and there was a really smart guy in the other side telling me, no, don't do it, or do it in this way, and for free. It was really, really nice. Another thing is we was always surprised by customer issues, like, my computer is not working with the software or something like that. And after using open source, the community is much bigger, and we was sharing the experiences with the community. Sometimes our customer was having the problem, sometimes other one was having the problem. So it really helped a lot, and it's still helping. Before, it was hard to get help because, well, that code was basically myself, Diogo, Michelle, we understood it, but it was hard to get someone extra helping us. And after working with the open source, new team members get ready in short time because of the documentation, the code quality, and all the other aspects that I already mentioned. So, being a Red5 committer opened multiple doors to IMDT. We could work in amazing projects, real-time games, relationship platforms, churches, online job interviews. It was really new at that time, and it was really nice to work in projects like that. But the greatest recognition of working with Red5 was to be invited to join the Bigbluebutton team. In 2011, Fred Dixon invited me to join the Bigbluebutton team as a core committer. in these early days, I basically helped with Red 5 improvements. I remember many messages like, we got an out of memory, can you help us? Sometimes I could help, sometimes I was just learning from Richard. Yeah, that was a great experience. I've contributed with the lock settings module also by myself at that time. And after a while, we started to contribute as a company by having developers working, improving Bigbluebutton. Because this was not our only project. We have other customers, big customers too. So that was like, I could not focus myself on improving it, but I still wanted to be closer to the project and continue contributing. So I started with some people working in the project, and these contributions resulted in a partnership between IMDT and Blindside networks. And this allows us to continue investing time and to have team focused in the product. And we are now trusted by companies and governments around the world to customize and maintain their private Bigbluebutton clouds. So we don't offer like a platform or something that you can use. There are another great products like Felipe was showing and other commercial products that are probably coming. We hope so. And we're basically working with custom development and supporting the private clouds. So the main goal of this presentation is this kind of repeating. I wrote a word for that. Okay, but putting all of this in perspective, I can see a virtual cycle. By learning, we collaborated. By collaborating, we obtained recognition. With this recognition, we got more business opportunities. And with these opportunities, we learn more. It's a great infinite loop. So we are always learning, contributing, getting more recognition, more business opportunities, and anyone can be doing the same. You can start opening an issue today and tomorrow validating this issue and who knows, coding and contributing and doing commercial products on top of Bigbluebutton. So it's open to everyone. It's very inclusive. Before I open to questions, I've prepared some answers because I'm not sure if anyone is going to make a question. So yeah, what's next? There is a much bigger roadmap for the product that Fred exposed very well. And this is my personal roadmap, a small one. The things that I want to invest some time in the upcoming months. I want to make it easier for others to contribute and easier for us to validate the contributions. So I'm constantly working in a simplified development environment. Anton showed part of this work in his presentation, where he said that the most convenient way of coding Bigbluebutton is using the BBB Docker Dev that I created and published. And it was really nice to see him talking it. And we plan to improve it much more. So we are going to updating documentations every time we get a simplified version, and you can always learn from there. Continuous integration. As much contributions we start to receive in the project, who is the one that is contributing and wants to make sure that it didn't break at anything, and we want to make sure. So having a continuous integration is something that is really important to the project, and also help as much as I can with performance, scalability, and modularity. And so what's your, I'm graduated in engineering, and we had some business classes, and the teachers was always saying, you need a purpose, you need a reason to be here. And I was always, oh my God, what's our purpose? What are we doing? And so what's our purpose? Why we are here? A nice team, having fun by coding all day long. That's all. We just want to improve, to contribute, and to help others. Feel free to ask any questions. Thank you for watching. That's all.
Diego, thank you for that. And thank you for just sharing the story of what, please keep sharing your webcam. And Felipe, if you could come back, share your webcam as well. Just echoing the value that you get out of contributing to others. And I mean, Tiago, you told it from a personal point of view for Red 5. I can just share, I can remember watching your contributions to Red 5 in the early days. We were using Red 5 and we were like, man, what are we going to do if we had a problem? And here's this guy named Tiago that's building a web conferencing system. Maybe he would like to work with us instead of building his own system. And you know, as inviting, as welcoming as you found us, we found you and Felipe equally as welcoming. It was sharing of ethos in terms of how we thought we could build successful projects and companies around working together rather than separately. And there's no bigger evidence of that being the right choice than where the companies are today. So this is actually the last session, but there will be more conferences for Bigbluebutton for sure. This one was actually, took quite a lot of work to pull together, but man, we got back so much more for the effort. I invite anybody here who would like to ask Felipe or Tiago a question to ask it. We'll do the formal recording for like another 2 minutes, and then we'll probably just open it up and hang around if anyone else has any questions. And actually, let's do this. Let me, since we're getting close to the end of our time, stay around, please. But Felipe, Tiago, I want to formally thank you for all the contributions you've done over the years and the great presentation to just sort of summarize and hopefully inspire other commercial companies to contribute to Bigbluebutton. There's so much more ahead, and if you want to have, you know, a really good purpose in life, you know, pick a project that is going to be contributing to and improving the world. And I don't know that this was the original plan in the beginning, but it's how it turned out. And it's a very satisfying feeling. So thank you, both Felipe and Tiago. All right, I'm going to stop the recording and formally close the conference, the first Bigbluebutton World Conference. And there will be many more. Thank you all for joining. All right, I feel like we should have done a closing ceremony. I don't even have my Bigbluebutton shirt on. But let us make this the closing ceremony where we just kind of hang out for a few minutes. And just if anyone else in the forum would want to chat or ask questions. I think I didn't mention it during the formal part of the conference, but there is work underway to actually do sort of smaller, more frequent interactions with the community. It's just, there's been so much work that's been going underway. This actually forced us to kind of come together and, or gave us the opportunity to come together and sort of collaborate more with the community. There'll be more of this coming forward. It's very easy for us now to, you know, host 100 people if we want at a Bigbluebutton session and just have like a bi-weekly call with the community where we have like an agenda, we go through, talk about what's going on, people give us feedback. We read a lot about Bigbluebutton in the forums and the Twitter and that, but hard to replace just face-to-face talking with people.
And it was a great idea, Fred, to bring other people and not ourselves to speak, like users, system administrators, Steven that spoke today. So others than us talking to the community, but it was like the community talking to the community. And I really like the idea on how you split each public, every day a different public, and very good talks every day. So congrats for the organization. It was really, really nice.
Well, the consensus here is that we're going to do this again soon, like in the fall. We may not be 4 days, but we should be past the 2.4 release. We should be on the next release cycle. Summer fall term would have started. Hopefully we're all in a better place with regards to COVID, the pandemic, but we want to build upon all the momentum that got built up over the last 14, 16 months. And there was a lot of discussion about where is the theme of the conference, and we realized that there were many themes, but the most important one was focusing on the needs of the instructor, the teacher. And so we kind of started with that and then structured the whole conference around really all these companies, all these developers, all these administrators have been involved in the project because schools and teachers needed to teach online. And where the project has gone into many places, it's been embedded in areas that we had never anticipated. We know from past experience that if you focus, you can succeed. And if you don't remain focused, it's hard to succeed. So I'm really glad we picked the focus of online learning back in the early days, and where we had to build out a lot of the core capabilities that are in any web conferencing system. Today, Bigbluebutton is seen as and increasingly differentiated by our focus on online learning. And if we do a really good job in that area, of course we do a great job in other areas, but we had to do a good job in one area first.
John asked about having a BBB client app for iOS and Android tablets. I think it's a great idea. We see every day some areas in which mobile struggles a little bit, mainly when the user put the website or the web browser in background and to answer a phone call or to answer a text message or something, it's not ideal. But I think that there is a lot of work involved in building and more importantly, maintain a BBB client application. So eventually, I think that we will do it if there are other people involved in the project with efforts, development efforts to start it. That would be fantastic. So far, we have been focused on other more basic stuff, I can say. But I definitely see this is the way to go in the future. And yes, the only cons I can say is the effort to develop and maintain. I don't see a specific con.
There is only one thing that I can see is that Bigbluebutton is easy to download and install. But as soon as we create some mobile application, it will not be easily implemented because someone needs to build and distribute it. So it will need to be uploaded to Google Play Store or Apple App Store, and who is using Bigbluebutton usually do some kind of customization. So how you achieve this? So for private companies or private builds, it can be an option. It can be open source, but it will probably be challenging to have this out of the box.
I think that Moodle has a similar problem, right? Because people have their own Moodle versions and Moodle customizations, and there is one single Moodle app that anybody can download from the store. But how can we support the customizations that we do on Bigbluebutton on a mobile application? There are many challenges in order to do that, but it's a really, really good question. Yeah, so let's try to send that email to Thiago that he said it was not impossible, so that was a great story, Thiago, by the way, really good.
Yeah, let's repeat. The customer was paying, by the way.
Felipe and Tego, I think based on some of the interest and the contributions in the project, Europe and Germany, we have to get a developer summit over there. Maybe not this year for sure. Who knows? Maybe a year from now. But it'd be great to go over there and work with some of the companies in Europe that have been working on Bigbluebutton as well.
That would be really nice, and we continue open to future summits here in Porto Alegre as well.
There's an interesting question about progressive web app, and I know we looked at it in the past. I don't know that it actually buys us anything, because there's no. I think we did some prototype in the past, but I'm not sure if it's far enough along where we'd be able to like look at building a progressive web app. It's just the browsers are getting better and better, and for all the negative remarks that Apple may get for Safari on iOS, it actually works. Like when they supported VP8, that was huge. It meant that we did not have to do transcoding on the server between VP8 and H.264. Which we were kind of looking at doing and maybe having to build a mobile app. But that support from Apple actually opened up a door where you could be on an iPhone or an iPad and it would work. And the apps, the devices are just getting faster and faster. It's still software decoding of VP8 and your phone will run a bit warm, but it just works. And the CPUs are just getting amazing. So there's one thing that is still missing on the iOS devices is screen share, and that we may figure out a way for that at some point in the future. But yeah.
Don't leave me alone, Thiago.
Actually, it's disconnected.
Well, it was very nice, guys. Thank you so much for all the questions and interaction and for being here. I look forward to talk to you again in the future. Back to you, Fred. Or Jess, sorry.
Thank you both so much for taking the time to be here. This is an awesome session. I think that's about it. I'm going to head out, and folks are welcome to stay in the room for a little bit longer to use the chat function. But thank you all so much, and keep an eye on your emails for links to the recordings from this week. Bye, everyone.